Hello, hello, hello. I'm HoJo.
And I'm Hunnsy.
And welcome to this, the 33rd episode of HoJo and Hunnsy's Hard Rock House, the safe space for old rock gumbies just like us, where the rock is nothing to do with Dwayne Johnson these days. It's all about Jason Momoa, isn't it, Hunnsy? Have you heard?
No, do tell.
Jason Momoa is going to be comparing the Black Sabbath show that we've talked about endlessly on July the 5th in Birmingham. Jason Momoa comparing. Can you imagine that? He might do a few gags. He'll do a little turn. He'll make all the girls swoon, and then he'll introduce the bands.
Why is he doing it?
Because he loves metal. Well, he looks metal, doesn't he?
Was he Man from Atlantis or something? What was he again?
I think he was in Man from Atlantis.
Who do you think would have been more interesting?
Well, you'd want Crusher Jewel, wouldn't you?
I'd want the Bailey brothers.
The Bailey brothers, yeah. That'd be your ideal choice.
I mean, it would have been Tommy Vance.
It's going to be hard for Tom.
It is going to be hard for Tom. But all right, I never knew that. I never knew he was comparing.
Jason Momoa.
That's interesting.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I won't be there.
You won't get a ticket for reasons discussed.
You'll be there, though, so you can review it.
I'll be there.
I've been telling people about your outpouring of emotion about the Sabbath show and how you went all teary-eyed around gooey to send off to a person that many thousands of people have loved. And everybody just went, who have you been speaking to? Who's that? What's he talking about? The shockwaves of your response, they've scared me.
They've reverberated. Why is that then? They think I'm a hard-hearted soul.
Yeah. They thought you would have been as cynical as me.
As they are.
As they are, yeah. I've seen the news this week. I don't know whether you've seen it, but it's been reported that Ozzy has said that he'll only be able to do a few minutes here and there.
I did see that, yeah.
So that goes back to what I said originally, is he'll do 4 songs and that'll be it. It's all starting to unravel a bit.
I'll tell you what, it's not starting to unravel from a sales perspective, is it?
No.
They sold out in about 10 seconds, didn't they?
I know. People I saw who were posting images on Facebook, they were number 450,000 in the queue.
Do you know anyone who got any tickets?
Yes, I do.
Who got them that you knew?
A couple of guys I know who I got the rugby with, they got a couple of tickets.
How much did they have to pay, do you know?
I think they paid...
Was it dynamic pricing, incidentally? I don't know.
Yeah. That all kicked in. I think they went for Golden Circle. It quoted us somewhere between 275 and 475, and I think they ended up paying like 800 quid or something, or 900 quid.
Wow, really?
They got the tickets and they're very happy.
Oh, that's good. Guess who I spoke to this week? Okay. Someone who's going to be front and centre for the infamous gig that we can't stop talking about.
What, you spoke to Jason Momoa?
No, I spoke to Tony Iommi, though.
Tony Iommi.
I spoke to the man himself. We had a right laugh.
Did you?
Oh, he was brilliant.
Was he telling you about his bank balance just going up by the second?
No. He told me something about the gig, but I can't tell you. I'm absolutely sworn to secrecy. He did tell some brilliant stories. I'll just give you one quick story that he told me.
Yeah.
He was talking about the heyday of Sabbath.
Which was? When was the heyday?
Well, 1975, obviously. I did tell you, didn't I, that the classic period was Ozzy. Well, Tony's confirmed it.
Has he?
He's only confirmed it, yeah.
How's he confirmed it?
By saying the classic period was with Ozzy.
Well, he's not going to say... He's not going to say the classic period was Dio just before he's about to do an Aussie gig, is he?
No, true. That is true.
He's not going to go, well, the classic period was obviously with Ronnie. Yeah, but he's dead, so we can't do it.
He can't do it. No, I can't play with him. Well, anyway, I'm taking it as gospel. But he did tell some brilliant stories, and the one that I thought was fantastic, he said, in their heyday in the mid-70s, they were in LA recording some album or other. And he said, we stayed in a fancy mansion.
Can you not continue the Birmingham accent?
I did well last episode, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
I kept it going, but I think today I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. So they were in a mansion that they had been lent by somebody that they knew who was a paint magnate, made his fortune selling paint.
Right.
And Tony me and Oz went down to the basement to see what was going on down there. And we found loads and loads of tins of paint.
Do you think any drugs had been taken before they went down?
Of course. So Tony said, so he had this great idea.
You've gone Birmingham again.
That's just natural.
We had this great idea.
We had this great idea that we would suggest to Bill that we painted him.
Right.
And Tony said, Bill was always a willing participant. He was always the butt of the jokes, but he was also a willing participant. Whatever you suggested, he would just agree to. So I went, Bill, do you mind if we paint you? And he went, yeah, all right.
He was bullied, wasn't he, essentially?
Well, I think we might call it bullying now.
Call HR.
Yeah. So anyway, he'd agreed so that they would paint him. And then Tony said, and we found this gold paint.
Right.
And it looked really nice. So we spray painted him gold.
Right.
Obviously influenced by Goldfinger here, I'm thinking.
Of course. Did they lie him naked on a bed as well?
Yeah, probably. And then he said, and then we found some varnish, this nice varnish that would make it look all shiny.
All right, okay.
So they painted the varnish on top of the gold paint.
Bill just let them do this?
Yeah, Bill's just quite happy for him to do this. This is all okay. And they said, and then obviously we didn't think about it at the time, but afterwards we thought, oh yeah, when we put the varnish on, it probably stopped the skin from breathing, didn't it? So they said, all of a sudden, Bill just started throwing up. And they got very nervous. And they quickly had to phone 911. And the person at the other end of the phone said, can you tell me what the problem is? And he goes, yes, we've painted our drummer gold. He said, when they got there, the paramedics were not happy. He did go, yeah, I think we went a bit far there. He could have died.
From my rudimentary knowledge of varnish removal, generally it's like a specialist toxic spirit that you use to get varnish off.
I don't think it's advisable. Single-digit listeners, do not paint your friends with varnish. Very poor notion.
Well, Bill survived anyway.
Only highly qualified professionals can do this, like Tony and Ozzy.
That's a brilliant story.
Well, it was very funny. He told me about half a dozen stories straight off the top of his head, and the two of us were just laughing our heads off.
They should paint him gold before he comes on stage at the gig in July.
I know I said it last episode. He's a brilliant man, Tony Iommi.
Yeah,
just love him.
Lovely. Did you tell him you were going to the gig?
Yeah, I said to him, obviously this will mean nothing to you because you'll have 1 million people, but I'll be there to pay my tribute. And he went, oh, that's very nice, thank you.
Did you say, can you make sure there's some apricot crumble on the menu?
Tony will get whatever he wants that day.
Of course he will.
So let's get back on track with our usual format. I'm going to ask you the $10 million question.
Which is?
What have you been listening to this week, Hunnsy? You don't get $10 million for answering.
So I was in the car the other day and I had a bit of a shuffle playlist on. And a track came on from this album and the vocalist of this band. And I turned around to my wife and I went, this guy's in the top 3 rock vocalists of all time. And obviously she just looked at me with a blank space going, right, okay, fine, whatever. I went, no, listen to him. Listen to him. He's amazing.
Would I disagree with you?
Don't think so. I've been listening to the 4th studio album by, I'm going to say British band, but they were part British, part American.
Hybrid band.
I would say hybrid, yeah. Foreigner 4. If you don't know this album, then you shouldn't be listening to this podcast, really, because it is one of the greatest. I'd call it mainstream, radio-friendly hard rock. And obviously, it was produced by the man that has been talked about quite a lot on this podcast. He was produced by Robert John Mutt Lange.
Yeah, who's 76 years old, I read today.
Is he?
76 now.
Is he still married to Shania Twain or not?
Oh, no. That went a bit tits up, I think.
Right, okay. I don't need to go into the songs on it, do I? Jukebox Hero, Urgent, Nightlife, brilliant song. Break It Up's just amazing. But what I didn't know, did you know that the album was originally called Silent Partners?
When you mention it, it sparks something. I wouldn't have been able to tell you had you not mentioned it, but now you've mentioned it. Something in the back of my reptile brain is going, I did know something about it.
It was originally called Silent Partners. Then it was changed to 4. It was Foreigner's 4th album. And the band now had 4 members, right?
I think that was probably the reason, wasn't it? Because they'd lost. Can you remember who they'd lost?
Oh, no, who they lost?
Well, they lost Ed Gagliardi, hadn't they? He was one of them. Was he the bass player?
I was going to say him, but I couldn't.
You've not done your homework, have you?
Well, no, it's just I couldn't pronounce his surname. What's interesting, though, Hypnosis were asked to design the sleeve.
I don't see Foreigner as a Hypnosis band.
No.
At what point did Hypnosis just start tossing it off, though? Because they did at one point.
I mentioned it before. They've got a drawer full of ideas that they probably sell.
Yeah. All that stuff, like the Pink Floyd things and the Zeppelin things, they were great. And then by the time it got to Halloween, and they were just going, "Oh yeah, I've got a man with a bowler hat and a fish," and you're going, "Oh really? Have you?"
Yeah, it all.
What about a gorilla? It'd be a much better idea. Get someone to dress up as a gorilla. I think it was all just a bit, "Can I get my money now?" by that stage, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. So they were asked to design the sleeve for the Foreigner 4th album, which was going to be called Silent Partners.
Right.
And the sleeve design was a black and white image of a young man in bed with a pair of binoculars suspended in the air overhead.
Very hypnosis, yeah.
But Foreigner rejected the design because they felt it was a bit too homosexual.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Why is that homosexual? A pair of binoculars above a man in a bed. When you think about it, there's nothing homosexual whatsoever.
Well, it doesn't mention whether he was naked or not.
Well, even if he is. When you look back on it now, you go, oh, mate, come on, let's get woke.
You know what I'm going to do? The wonders of AI now allow you to create an image.
Are you going to do your version of it?
Yeah, I've looked for it and I can't find it anywhere.
Don't look for it. It's not there anymore.
So I'm going to try and create
what you think it would have been. It's a great idea. And then you're going to put it up on our
socials. The only instruction I need to give to AI is create me a black and white image of a young man in bed with a pair of binoculars suspended in the air.
Yeah.
It'll do it.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that.
I'm going to put a Foreigner logo on there and I'm going to design it as if it was an album cover. But obviously it was rejected and we know what the cover was. It was a 4, the old-fashioned film number of a 4 from the countdown thing. Back to the album, Lou Gramm. You cannot deny the vocals of that guy.
Yeah. And also, what a surname for a man who was a rock vocalist in the 80s. Never thought of that before.
Seriously, I haven't.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I've read recently he's coming back to do some shows with them, isn't he?
He'd had a go on the foot pump, hadn't he, for a long time?
Yeah, he'd been in the biscuit tin.
Who's the fellow who replaced him? I can never remember his name. Kelly someone.
Kelly Hansen, wasn't it?
Kelly Hansen, that's it. He was a very good identikit Lou Gramm voice, but he had the Steven Tyler rock star look, didn't he? It was a win-win for Foreigner there, wasn't it?
I saw them with Kelly Hansen at the London Palladium.
That's a good place to see a band.
It was the night before I did one of my heavy metal truants bike rides to download. And it's the night before a long bike ride. You know those bike rides to download.
I do.
You've done them. So you know the distance and you know what's involved.
You're not supposed to go out and get absolutely battered watching Foreigner the night before.
No.
You did?
Yeah. Because I got so excited. They were brilliant. Kelly Hansen was brilliant. And I've forgotten how heavy metal Jeff Pilson is. He was properly headbanging to Waiting for a Girl Like You. It was brilliant.
Well, you think about it, they were very much the 80s. So you've got Lou Gramm and Jeff Pilsner.
But Mick Jones was still playing then. I mean,
I saw Foreigner probably 3 years ago and it was a bit of a sorry state, bless him. They had to wheel him on a bit. Did he do the whole show when you saw them?
Yeah, he did the whole show.
No, because he only did like 3 numbers when I saw him. He'd gone downhill. He had the old vacant Alzheimer's stare. I don't know if he's been diagnosed, but he didn't look like he was there.
They got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, was it last year or something?
Did they, yeah?
Yeah, and he wasn't there. I think it was his daughter. I call him the original Mick Jones, not that imposter from that silly punk band, The Clash. Mick Jones, it's Foreigner.
The Mick Jones.
The Mick Jones, yes.
See, I called the Mick Jones the ginger-haired striker who used to play for Leeds United.
Who looked like Frank Spencer.
Yeah, he did. So for me, he's number 1 in the hierarchy of Mick Jones. Then number 2, him out of Foreigner. And number 3, him out of The Clash.
All right, okay. For our single-digit listeners who haven't got a clue who Mick Jones, the ginger-haired striker from Leeds United, who looked like Frank Spencer from some others do have him.
Do your fucking research. That's what I say.
Yeah. But anyway, Foreigner 4 is...
Foreigner 4 is a great record, though. I was going to ask you, when it came out, did you have any hesitation? Because I would say that the difference between the first 3 Foreigner albums and Foreigner 4 in terms of sound and approach was quite dramatic.
Yeah.
Because the third album was Head Games, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Head Games was a lot more muscular, wasn't it? It was a lot harder.
Yeah. Definitely.
Head Games had Dirty White Boy on it, didn't it?
Yeah.
Don't think there's a Dirty White Boy on Foreigner 4. Which isn't to say that it's a bad record. It was a very good record, but it was definitely going into the we want to be ginormo AOR radio vibes.
Mutt Lange was pivotal to the sound.
Of course he was, because he was the man who was brought in to take you from 3 million sales to 10 million sales. That was his job, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You're already a big band. There's no denying. Foreigner were not a small band. But that was his gig in the 80s, wasn't it? People would pay him an obscene amount of money, I imagine, to take them from 3 million sales to 10 million sales.
Yeah. Roy Thomas Baker produced Head Games, didn't he?
Did he?
Do you remember the Slave for Head games? It's got that sort of.
I do. It's
a girl sitting on a men's urinal or something, isn't it?
Well, I think it was a girl looking slightly afeared in a men's urinal. I think that might, in more enlightened times, not be the most acceptable cover anymore. I really like Foreigner 4, but it feels slightly like a different band. And in some ways it was, wasn't it? Because, like I said, they'd lost 2 members and Mutt Lange was there to polish off the rough edges.
It felt like they were moving into a different territory. The albums that followed were in that
Worst
same...
shit, weren't they? Let's be honest.
Oh, Agent Provocateur is a great record.
Oh, no. I got off the Foreigner bus after 4, mate.
Did you?
Oh, very much so. Did you like I Want to Know What Love Is and all that nonsense?
Oh, yeah, it's brilliant.
You like that track?
Yeah, I think I tracked them. When I saw them at the Palladium, they brought out...
Did they bring out a choir by
They
any
did.
chance?
And was it a local school choir?
Yeah, or a local Baptist church choir?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, of course
yes, it was. Yes, it was. If you've had 7 or 8 pints, you are up there singing it with everybody. And you would have been as well.
Know what love is.
Exactly.
I want you to show me. I could just imagine you 7 pints in.
Oh, yeah.
Bet you cried, didn't you?
Well, you know, if you're allowed to get emotional about a Black Sabbath gig, I'm allowed to get emotional at a Foreigner gig.
I don't know. When you're in your cups then on a Saturday night and you're feeling slightly amorous towards Mrs. Hunt, do you soften the territory by putting I Want to Know What Love Is on?
Soften the territory. I tell you what, I'd like to give that title to Hypnosis and see what they come up with.
I don't think I would. I'd be afeared. You tend to play Manowar before you get romantic.
Come walking in the bedroom all oiled up with a loincloth on.
Can you imagine what Mrs. Hunt would say? The spare room's that away.
Let's move on. What have you been listening to?
I've been listening to an album that is kind of in the same area, but leads on to a debate about AOR generally. I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's by a band called Piper. Do you know who Piper are? Not Billy Piper. Because we want to. Because we want to.
Wasn't Thingy originally in Piper?
It's a Billy. It's just not Billy Piper.
Billy Squire was originally in Piper.
There you go. I've been listening to Piper's second album, which is called Can't Wait. It's from 1978, I believe, and it was their second release on A&M. 77, sorry.
Right.
And it's interesting because when you go on Discogs, if anybody doesn't know Discogs, have we discussed Discogs before on the podcast?
Briefly.
Yeah. Discogs is a place where you can go and find out information about any album that's ever been released. It's an incredible resource. But when they catalogue each album, they put the band name, the band title, and then they have 3 categories, one of which is genre, one of which is style, and one of which is year. Now, I don't really know if there's a massive difference between what genre might mean and what style might mean. Do you?
No.
It's actually the first time I've noticed this. So this one says Piper Can't Wait. Genre, rock, comma, pop.
Yeah.
And then style, power pop.
Oh.
So I don't quite know how they're figuring that out.
Okay.
But anyway, that's the album I'm listening to. It's called Can't Wait. It was in 1977 that it appeared, which was 3 years before Billy Squire's first solo album, The Tale of the Tape. And it's a very interesting record because it's from that time. We discuss this on a fairly regular basis. When did American radio start to really become format oriented and making demands on how records were made? It must be X BPM. It must have this sound on it. All that stuff. Because I think there was a time probably prior to 1980 where stuff that got on the radio in America was commercial in the broadest sense, but not absolutely fitting into that AOR standard that became established when you had songs like Babe by Styx and Keep On Loving You by REO and Faithfully by Journey, where you kind of knew that the radio had a format that they thought worked and you had to write to it.
Yeah.
Now, this is prior to that. So the album features a lot of what you'd call commercial rock songs. Power pop is probably not a million miles away.
Would you say it's in the vein of the Cars?
No. It's not like that at all.
Right,
it's
okay.
much more traditional, commercial rock music. We talked about Stars, didn't we, a few weeks back?
Yeah.
Now, Stars was kind of commercial hard rock, wasn't it?
It's power pop.
But it doesn't sound like Faithfully by Journey, does it?
No.
It's a different style of music, and we're probably not making a very good job of explaining those differences. But this record, despite being pretty poppy, doesn't sound like a formula radio record. The arrangements are not verse, chorus, big keyboard fills to bring out the tear-jerky nature of the ballad and all that. They're just songs that sound quite poppy. But you'd still need to listen 3 or 4 times before you could pick out the key melodies. These are the kind of things that radio stations didn't want in the end. They wanted it to just be really instant. The minute you hear it, you go, oh yeah, our radio listeners will be able to sing that song immediately.
But it's got a hard edge.
Yeah. It's not metal by any stretch of the imagination. It's a hard rock record with quite a lot of pop sensibilities, but in the old style of pop as well. Bee Gees and Andy Gibb and all that kind of stuff. Just nice melodies. It's not really AOR. Not really.
I'm just reading about it, actually, that they were managed by the same people that managed Kiss.
They were managed by Bill O'Coin.
I didn't realise they opened for Kiss.
They did.
On the 1977 tour. They did 2 nights at Madison Square Garden.
Well, they would have done, wouldn't they? You know, it was an obvious thing. If Bill O'Coin's managing your band, he's going to try and put you on in front of the most people he possibly can. Obviously, he's got the biggest band in America, so he's going to put his own band opening the show, isn't he? It's a bit like the Raven Age.
I was going to say, it's a bit like the Raven Age. Iron Maiden World Tour, supported by the Raven Age.
Yeah, there you go. It's not a great record. It's just I happen to be listening to it. Partly based around the work that I'm doing, because I've just interviewed Billy Squier. So I'm doing my research and listening to his work that he did prior to that. And then you get intrigued and you start going, oh, I'm going to put that on and have a listen. And you go through it. And don't get me wrong, it's not as good as Tailor the Tape or Don't Say No. Those are Billy Squier's 2 opus maximuses, aren't they?
Would he agree with you on
Yes,
that?
I think he would. It's a decent record, but it's not a multi-platinum record.
Yeah, it was interesting, though, that once Piper fell by the wayside, it was Squire who signed the solo deal. He was clearly seen as the talent.
I think all the songs were written by him anyway, this Piper song. He plays most of the leads and he does all the lead vocals. Right. So it's probably safe to say that Piper was I like the term, it was a vehicle for Billy.
I imagine there's going to be a lot of our listeners who aren't aware of Piper or this particular
album. I would have thought
so.
so. You'd have to be quite a dedicated 70s hard rock fan to know this record.
So if you were saying to them, I think you should go and listen to it because of XYZ, what would be the XYZ?
I think you should go and listen to it because it's an interesting way of looking at the evolution of Billy Squier as an artist. Now, That might not be the sexiest sell that anyone's ever given for check this album out.
Homework for today is
to understand why Billy Squier got good later. But then again, that's me. Every so often, I do like to just go and delve into something and come out of it and go, well, it wasn't amazing. It's not going to change my life, but I'm still glad I know a little bit about that. That's probably the train spotter in me, the bus spotter. I used to be a bus spotter when I was young.
You what? You used to?
I used to spot buses when I was about 10. I mean, that's low, isn't it?
What was your favourite bus?
Well, I don't know if I had favourite types or anything. It was just collecting the numbers.
What was your favourite route?
Now, what was the one that used to go from Altrincham up to Manchester? I used to like that because it would take me into town for 2 pence. Because do you remember when there was kids' fares on buses?
Yeah.
And the kids' fares on buses in Greater Manchester, where I lived, were that 2 pence would take you anywhere you wanted to go. There was one fee. So I could literally do a bus journey that lasted an hour and covered 20 miles for 2 pence.
Wow.
So whatever the one that took me into Manchester to buy Scorpions' Animal Magnetism album, for example, that was my favourite bus.
My favourite bus when I lived in London was the N.
This is good. We're into my favourite bus route. I love it.
My favourite bus was the... can't believe we're saying this. My favourite bus was the N207.
Why was that?
Well, it was the night bus from the centre of London back to my flat in Acton. So it was
you saw some sights on a night bus, didn't you?
Well, so there was a bunch of us who used to go out in London on a Saturday night. You got to remember, right, this is before internet, before phones.
Yeah.
And we used to get the N207. It used to take you an hour and a half to get back. If you'd done it in a cab, you could get back in 25 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But eventually, as you're working in London, you get better pay. There was a bunch of us just got sick of doing the night bus because you go, right, we can afford a cab now. If it's 4 of us going back to West London, we can all jump in a cab. Because we'd been to like the Astoria or the Hellfire Club, which were the metal clubs in London.
Yeah.
So there was a bunch of us used to get a cab, but there was one lad, I won't name him. He used to say, no, I'm still going to get the bus. And we were like, are are you sure? He's going, yeah. But like, you've got a really good job. You could probably afford to get a cab on your own. He's going, no, I'm getting the bus. And he used to get the night bus because basically that's where he would pick up girls.
Okay. Ulterior motive.
He shared a flat with one of the lads who we used to get a cab back with. And there's this brilliant story. This happened regularly, but the first time it happened was obviously the funniest. This one Sunday morning, the phone rang in the flat and the guy answers it and it's his flatmate. And he says, have you got an A to Z? And he goes, yeah, where were you last night? He says, oh, just have you got an A to Z? This was like 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning or something on the Sunday. Yeah, I've got an A to Z. Right, he says, I'm going to give you a street address. Can you just tell me where I am? He pulled some bird on the night bus, got off, went back to hers, and woke up the next morning.
4 ensued.
Yeah, 4 ensued. Yeah. He woke up, regretted it. He legged it, found a payphone. Right, I'm on this street. Can you tell me where it is and where the nearest tube station is?
Oh, yeah, so I can make my getaway. I've got to tell one quick night bus story before we go. When I lived in East Dulwich, south of the river in London, when I first moved in with the lovely Louise, and we used to get the night bus home from right in the centre of town. Do you remember they all stopped in Trafalgar Square, didn't they?
Yeah.
And one of them was opposite the National Portrait Gallery, I think, where it was.
Yeah. That's where the night buses used to go from.
Okay, so I was there, and I am going to name her. She's the lovely Nicola Swift, because she wouldn't mind, because she's a tremendous lady. We used to go out with her and her boyfriend Rob, and they were waiting to get the night bus back to wherever they were living, and we were waiting to get ours. And you know what it's like when you've got to the end of the night and you're waiting for the bus, and then all of a sudden the urge to have a great big piss takes you over.
Always.
But there's nowhere to go and there's millions of people.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. Oh, and Nikki decided she really, really needed a piss. So Nikki went, it'll be all right, don't worry. I'm going to go right to the back where the National Portrait Gallery is. Because you remember there was a big grass expanse before the building, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And she said, I'll be all right. I'll just go down there and I'll have a piss down there. Nobody will know. So off she goes. She drops her knickers and starts to have a piss. And then all of a sudden, there's light sensitive options there, and the whole thing goes poof, like that, and these enormous great lights come up.
Super halogen ones, like the massive.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And everybody turns round, and she's right in the middle of a piss, right? So she can't stop. And then the shock of it all makes her fall backwards, so she's pissing in the air. And everybody just yeah, everyone cheering and hollering and everything. And Nikki, because she was brilliant, she got up, pulled her knickers back up and took a bow. But bless her, she wasn't fazed. Anyway, there you go. We've run out of time, and what a story to end on.
I can't believe we talked about buses. What's your favourite bus route?
That'll see our single-digit listeners spike by 1,000%. All right, I'm going to leave you to your granddaughter.
Thank you very much. I need to go and play her some music so she gets used to what she needs to be listening to.
She gets indoctrinated.
Inducted.
Oh yeah, inducted into the Legion of Metal Gummies.
Okay, well I'll see you next week then.
All right, mister. See you next week.
See you later, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.